What's happening? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Animation Station, your station for anything animation, including TVs and movies as well. I'm your host, Jackson Small. Welcome back to SpongeBob Month Chapter 5. Today it's time to actually start the proper episode reviews, because last time we did a special. So, for today's reviews, we have the episodes The Original Fry Cook and NightLight. So, you guys know how it works by now. We'll talk about each one individually, and then at the end, I will rank both of them against each other. So, without further ados or delays, let's start this episode review off proper with the original Fry Cook. Alrighty, and here we are at the original Fry Cook. In this episode, the original Krusty Krab Fry Cook named Jim stops by for a visit down memory lane, and apparently he's rich and very successful. And SpongeBob, of course, sees this as someone trying to steal his job, so he tries to get Mr. Krabs to see that he is still worth having around. But after many failed attempts, SpongeBob's about ready to give it up. That's when the twist of the episode comes into play, where it turns out that Jim was just visiting and wanted to just return to his successful business. This is a great episode for a few reasons. One, it feels like SpongeBob's job is legitimately on the line. Two, the voice actor for Jim is Patton Oswalt, and he actually does a pretty good job, and honestly, I didn't even recognize him, so props to him for putting attention to detail in his voice acting. And three, the biggest reason why I really love this episode is the ending, which, spoiler alert, is also the highlight of the episode, where he says that SpongeBob will always be a good fry cook, but he will never be a great one for as long as he works at the Krusty Krab. That's a really sweet little message. It's a way of saying, look, you're always going to be really good, but you're never going to be great until you go out there on your own. Which, of course, we know SpongeBob will never do. But it's still a really nice message, and it's still a really nice way to end the episode. Also, shout out to seeing young Krabs and Squidward, especially Squidward, that giant braid of that giant head of hair. Like, Squidward having hair. Okay, that part's funny. So, yeah, it's a pretty great episode. It's a very entertaining episode, and it also feels like a very important episode. So, yeah, because of that, I think it all amounts to a final verdict of, let's say, an 8 out of 10. Why is it not a 9 or a 10? Because the pacing in the second act is a little slow, and some of the parts are a little bit repetitive. That's really my only gripe with the episode. Outside of that, it's a great watch, it's a fun time, and it really does leave you thinking retrospectively, in a way. But it is still SpongeBob, so it's not too retrospectively. So, yeah, that's all I have to say about the original Fry Cook. Great episode, check it out. And with that said, let's move on to the second and last episode we are going to be reviewing for today, which is NightLight. Alright, and here we are at NightLight. In this episode, SpongeBob reads a scary story before going to bed, so now he gets terrified of the dark. So, Mr. Krabs suggests that he gets himself a nightlight, and SpongeBob, being SpongeBob, goes a little bit overboard with it, to the point where he ends up stealing a lighthouse with the help of Patrick, and it ends up shining a Mermaid Man signal in the sky, and Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy come into play, and the episode just gets bonkers from there. So, this episode is okay, but it does feel like there are a few bits that do drag. For example, SpongeBob going back to the bargain mart every 5 seconds just to get another nightlight. Like, come on, dude. Just one for each room's fine. You don't have to make your entire house a living glow stick. And not to mention, it's very repetitive, and it just feels like reused animation they didn't want to throw away. You know, time constraint budget cut thing. You guys get it. If you know your animation stuff, you understand what I'm saying. And then, there are some other weird parts. And the episode itself, it just feels a bit disjointed. I don't think that makes it bad, no. There are some pretty enjoyable parts of the episode, including my two highlights. The first one is when Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy enter the episode, and we end up getting Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy fighting off this, what Mermaid Man calls his arch nemesis. I don't remember what the name of this guy is. Killer Moth? No, that's DC. Mighty Moth. We're gonna call him Mighty Moth. Mighty Moth, this other new villain in the Merman Barnacle Boy Rogues Gallery that we actually haven't met up until now, which is interesting. And even more interesting, he is voiced by Mark Hamill. Yes, Joker Skywalker himself, Mark Hamill. And even though his part's very small in this episode, he does leave an impression. I mean, it's Mark Hamill. Dude always brings 110%, no matter how big or brief his role is. And then my second highlight, I can't say I really like this part per se, but it's just so weird that I had to point it out. My second highlight for the episode is the ending, where Patrick sees the sun, this giant light, as he calls it, when he and he and SpongeBob feel like they're, stuck in the dark because Mighty Moth flew away with his house. But then this big light comes over, obviously the sun, and Patrick, being Patrick, thinks it's the biggest light he's ever seen, so he runs an invisible staircase up to the sun. And then the episode ends with him running away with his butt set on fire. Random. That's all I have to say about that. It's random. Like I said, I can't really say it's a good part of the episode, but it's just so bizarre and out there that I had to put it somewhere in here. But then there's the worst part of the episode I gotta talk about. The Squidward torture porn segment of the episode, and unfortunately this is going to become a running gag throughout the rest of these seasons, especially in 7 and 8 specifically, where it gets really bad. But in this part, obviously because SpongeBob made his house into a living glow stick, and Patrick rammed his rock through the wall, it somehow makes the sunlight reflect in Squidward's house in a very unique, strange way with all his mirrors, right into burning him through the eyeballs. That's not funny. That just feels cruel. And the little grotesque imagery we get when we see, his burnt eyeballs shoot out of his head, no show should ever have that, unless it's, an actual show with gore, like Fallout, for example. But here, it feels out of place, it feels cruel, and it just feels like maiming Squidward for the sake of maiming Squidward. Why? I don't know. I don't know the psyche of the SpongeBob writers, so what do I know? What I do know, though, is that this episode at best is average. It's not a bad watch. I'll watch it if it's on, but if I'm given the choice, I will try to find a different episode. And I don't really go back to it very often, outside of those little weird moments that just stick in my head. So, because of that, I think NightLight deserves a final verdict of a 5 out of 10. It is an okay episode with some pretty good parts and a very, very weird ending. So, with that said, let's go ahead and move on now to our final thoughts and rankings. Alright, here we are at final thoughts and rankings. Yes, I am bringing these back because I forgot to do them the past 2 months, so I'm bringing them back and I'm going to try to make this as quality as I can. So, in second place, and it's not really in shame per se, because the episode itself is still okay, but it's still just okay. And because of that, NightLight gets second place. It's not in shame, but it is definitely outclassed, because number one, without any single doubt, is the original Fry Cook. It's a great episode. It's been a highly praised episode from what I've seen from the SpongeBob fan base, and it only gets better with every watch, honestly. Yes, it still has pacing problems, and I do feel like they do reuse many gags too many times, but little minor nitpicks aside, it's still a great episode, and I highly recommend it. And that's going to do it for this episode review. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Animation Station for more videos like this almost every single day. And stay tuned because, again, we still have a long way to go with SpongeBob because we're only just getting started. So I will see you guys next time when we dive into the 4th and 5th episode of the season with Rise and Shine and Waiting. And I'm just going to tell you right now, it's not gonna be fun. Why? Well, I'll tell you all about it next time.
We cannot take it anymore.